Siewcy prawdy.
U Pana z poddasza tam prawda wciąż grzmi o tajnym kluczu, co w mroku gdzieś lśni. Reptaliański szlak przez królestwa trwa, rządzą w cieniu tam, gdzie wzrok nie sięga. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozsiedowie archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Hybrydy krwi wśród ludu są też, korony na głowach skrywają ich grzech. Rodowe tajemnice w ciemnych salach drżą, władcy bez twarzy, co nami rządzić chcą. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozsiedowie archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Gdy księżyc się budzi, a noc wchodzi w dzień, Pan z poddasza opowieść wszędzie jak cień. O królewskich rodach, istotach, co trwają w tych sekretach i świat cały do kłamstwa namawiają. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozsiedowie archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Uważaj, słuchaczu, gdy noc w okno zapuka, Pan z poddasza prawdy o świecie z Tobą będzie szukał.
Dobry wieczór, witam serdecznie, Bogdan Morkisz, Siewcy Prawdy, witam. Tutaj będzie specjalny program, to absolutnie jest specjalne wydanie, można powiedzieć, programu U Pana z poddasza. A tutaj będzie mniej mnie dzisiaj, ale będzie materiał w 7 częściach, takich małych kawałkach, które chciałem tutaj jako takie dopełnienie tych programów, które ja wiem, było gdzieś około tygodnia temu, może gdzieś około tygodnia temu, mówiliśmy tutaj na programie U Pana z poddasza o Kate O'Brien, mówiliśmy o jej szokujących tak naprawdę wyznaniach, zeznaniach i opowieściach dotyczących najważniejszych ludzi na świecie, którzy ją gwałcili, którzy ją wykorzystywali seksualnie, którzy nią manipulowali. I dzisiaj będzie inna osoba, ta osoba nazywa się, jak widzicie w tytule, Anneke Lucas. I mamy bardzo podobne historie, tutaj będą opowiadane. Dzisiaj to nie będę ja opowiadał, ale bezpośrednio tutaj ta osoba, która właśnie przeżyła cały koszmar, który na pewno był koszmarem. Nie można mówić, że to było coś absolutnie, nie wiem, nawet możliwego do przeżycia. Zapewniam was, że mamy jeszcze jedną, można powiedzieć, taką tutaj rozmowę ponadgodzinną, to nie dzisiaj, to następnym razem pokażę wam jeszcze inną ofiarę tego przedstawienia. Tak więc jak ktoś, nie wiem, potraktował ten materiał dotyczący Kate O'Brien jako, nie wiem, wymyślony i jako fikcyjny, no to zaraz usłyszycie tutaj w pewnej rozmowie, w pewnym wywiadzie jedną z takich ofiar. To nie będzie Kate O'Brien, może kiedyś ona też się tutaj pokaże. Z tego co wiem, to chyba, nie wiem czy jest taki materiał, ale chyba Kate O'Brien rozmawiała z Davidem Ickiem o tym. Może gdzieś to jest nagrane, nie wiem, jak macie, to podeślijcie linka do takiego materiału, najlepiej, nie wiem, przynajmniej z napisami, to wtedy ten program by się tutaj gdzieś pokazał, ale po to, żeby pokazać, że to, o czym mówimy, to nie jest fikcja, To nie są teorie spiskowe, to nie są wymyślone po prostu jakieś rzeczy, które mają, nie wiem, spowodować to, żebyście się, nie wiem, tutaj pojawiali na programie i ekscytowali jakimiś wymyślonymi historiami. To się po prostu dzieje. I jeżeli my mówimy tutaj, również jako siewcy prawdy, o zmianie systemu, o scedowaniu władzy na tych dzieci wiatru i kurzu, to właśnie między innymi po to, aby takie sytuacje nigdy nie miały miejsca i abyśmy mogli po prostu mieć nad tym kontrolę. Dzisiaj tej kontroli absolutnie nie mamy. Tak więc tyle tytułem wstępu. Zaraz przeżyjecie tutaj, mam nadzieję, ciekawe chwile z ciekawymi informacjami, a przede wszystkim bardzo szokującymi informacjami. Jeżeli ktoś ma słabe nerwy, jeżeli ktoś, nie wiem, no wiecie, no będzie bardzo to przeżywał albo będzie, nie wiem, nie mógł spać z tego powodu, to naprawdę odpuśćcie sobie ten program, bo to będą historie przerażające i nigdy takie rzeczy nie powinny mieć miejsca na naszej planecie. A że ma, to ma. A że tacy ludzie, czy tam ewentualnie nie ludzie, ale jakieś bardzo wrogie nam istoty to robią i wiemy. Chcemy zatrzymać to, przyłączajmy się do siewców prawdy i promujmy demokrację pryncypialną. Jako pierwszy krok do odebrania im tej władzy, tej mocy, którą nad nami oni mają. Oczywiście na samym tutaj też wstępie jeszcze chciałem zaapelować o to, abyście udostępnili ten program, gdzie tylko się da, abyście oczywiście postawili łapkę do góry pod tym programem i nie zapominajcie, że jesteśmy teraz, jak wiecie, dzisiaj jest ostatni tego miesiąca, czyli mamy już jutro nowy miesiąc, mamy nowe opłaty, właściwie nowe, stare opłaty, ale w związku z nowym miesiącem, dlatego wrzućcie coś do naszego koszyczka, abyśmy te opłaty mieli tak naprawdę załatwione, abyśmy nie musieli się tym przejmować. Liczymy tutaj na waszą hojność i na to, że wszystko się oczywiście pięknie jak zawsze poukłada. Jeszcze dodatkowo chciałem was zaprosić, jeszcze mamy miesiąc na nasz Sylwester, który organizujemy w Ślesinie. To jest oczywiście połączone z 11. zlotem Siewców Prawdy i dodatkowo z 3. rocznicą istnienia naszej internetowej telewizji. Jak chcecie się zgłosić, piszcie na adres zlotsiewcy pisane razem @gmail.com. Tam podajecie imię, nazwisko i numer telefonu. Jak wam to umknęło, co powiedziałem teraz, to wejdźcie na stronę siewcyprawdy.tv, przeskrolujcie na dół strony, tam jest informacja o tym, jak się zapisać na zlot. To tyle. Teraz już przejdźmy do tego materiału szokującego. Mam nadzieję, że to będzie coś naprawdę dla was uzupełniającego, powiedzmy, do tych wszystkich programów u pana z poddarza. Jest to naprawdę niewiarygodna historia, której każdy powinien posłuchać. Zacytuję tylko mały fragment, zaraz puszczę wam te fragmenty, one są takie mniej więcej kilkunastominutowe, te części tej wypowiedzi. Mam nadzieję, że to wystarczy, aby zrozumieć z kim mamy do czynienia i jakie to jest bardzo wredne, wstrętne i paskudne. Oczywiście materiał jest z polskimi napisami, tak więc dosyć duże napisy, myślę, że nie będzie problemu z ich przeczytaniem. Cytat, który padnie w tej części. Byłam traktowana jak seksualna niewolnica i było to już jak miałem 10 lat. Gościem w pewnym podcaście była właśnie Anneke Lucas, która jest jedną z niewielu żyjących ofiar międzynarodowego kręgu pedofilii. Tutaj jest taka jeszcze kolejny cytat, także was zachęcił do tej pierwszej części. Więc twoja matka sprzedawała cię od 6 roku życia do 11. To się dzieje 6 godzin tygodniowo. Konkretna liczba, jaką podałaś. Podałam tę konkretną liczbę, ale to tylko przybliżenie. Przyjrzyjcie się temu materiałowi, aby dowiedzieć się, jaką rolę w tej historii odegrali ludzie jak Evelyn de Rothschild, David Rockefeller oraz ojciec obecnego premiera Kanady Pierre Trudeau. Zostawiam was teraz z pierwszą częścią tutaj tego materiału, a wy piszcie komentarze, co o tym sądzicie. Jak się oczywiście materiał skończy, pojawię się przed następnym tutaj fragmentem.
Oh, you and your mother from 6 years old till what age was it? Till
11.
11 years old. This is happening when you're saying 6 hours a week. That's the specific number you gave.
I gave that specific number, but it's an approximation. It wasn't every week, and sometimes it wasn't every week, but other times I was gone for the summer of 1972. I was gone 2 months from home. I wasn't home at all.
Where were you at? You were with? The traffickers?
I was with the traffickers.
And your
I was
mom wasn't there with you?
The first month, no. The first month I was in the United States, being trafficked in the United States by a powerful billionaire who was basically triaging me and training me in his homes.
Who is this?
I'm not saying who that is yet. I have to be careful what I say. I can't just flop these names out. I have to.
Would this be a person we would know?
Definitely, you would know the name.
Alive or dead?
Dead. He was, he was taking me here. I was in the United States, so I was either in his homes, 3 of his homes I spent time in, or I was in the room in the daytime sometimes, in a bedroom, or I was even at a family's near DC for a week, basically parked in a nice family that treated me well, probably satanic family, and that were very happy to do a favor for this man. And then I was, after that, was taken to Germany, and I was there for another month in a facility in Heidelberg for what was my mind control training. And this is 1972, and I was 9 years old.
Mind control training at 9 years old.
Yeah.
Why did they take you there?
When I met this billionaire, so in 1972, you had the Bilderberg meeting that happened in Belgium. So for that event, Paul van den Boeinans made sure that he probably did many things around there, but basically to please this powerful American that was there for the Bilderberg meeting, he staged a ritual.
And so why would they need to train you, though?
The mind control training, he had plans for me. And, all right, I can say something. He had me in his homes and everything to get me used to the life of the elite so that I would know how to eat, so that I would recognize good clothes, so that I would be comfortable in these environments. And alongside that, we went to on one of the islands on the northeastern coast of the United States and saw there, and this was a Rothschild who was there.
Rothschild.
A Rothschild, yeah.
And is this who you're talking about?
Yeah, so I'm saying we were with Evelyn the Rothschild for 1 day only. And it was clear that this billionaire, who you would think is just as powerful as this Rothschild, was not as powerful in the network as he was. And he was asking for permission to make the star that he wanted to make of me. Well, he didn't want to make me into a star. He wanted to make me into an elite sex slave where I would become famous in France, and then with that role, I would attract the most powerful men in the world, and I would be able to spy on them for him and so forth.
Is that David Rockefeller?
I'm not saying. I can't say this. All right.
Only reason I say that is because I pulled up the list from 2012 attendees, and I went through all the guests on the right that says U.S. from the Bilderberg meeting.
Okay.
Rob, if you go a little bit lower and zoom in and you put U.S., right there, you'll see the names that shows. I know this is...
Just give me a minute. Well, I can't lie, but it's scary. Yeah, might as well. Okay, there you go.
You've never talked about this.
I've never said his name.
You know, you hear these stories and you wonder, there's no way these people are capable of doing something like that. At what point did you know it was him?
When he died.
2017.
Yeah.
So you didn't know till 2017.
But I knew a lot but I didn't know it was him.
So how did you know it was him when he died in 27? Because that was just 7 years ago.
Immediately. I knew immediately. I just saw his face. And first of all, I saw his face, and then immediately a lot of other memories came back with him.
How much time did you spend with him?
Well, I spent quite a lot of time with him in the beginning. So from 72 to 73, this training. So I spent quite a lot of time with him in the U.S. in that first month, in July of 1972, and spent time in his estate in Westchester, and also in his home in New York City, and also in his home in Maine. And on the way to Maine, on his sailboat, we stopped off at Rothschild, who had to give his permission for the persona that he wanted to make out of me. And then Rothschild invited me into the family. And I gave I had not been treated very well up until then. So suddenly I get a very nice invitation. I feel, even this training, even though there was a lot of sex training also, just let's not make any mistakes here. This is not like I was just suddenly being treated really well. I was being trained sexually as well. But it was the best I'd ever seen in my life at age 9. And when I was invited,
Meaning treatment of elites, like lifestyle, wealth? Is that what you mean by treatment?
No, in the first 3 years in the network by Paul van den Boeynants, I was treated like absolute piece of dirt.
What does that mean?
I was the lowest of the low. He always treated me like, he wasn't worth the time for him to even have a chewing gum on his soul or something, and he just had to pull it off and just resented having to spend any time on me. But he was selling me all over, or whatever he was doing. He was using me for blackmail for people that were supposedly new, or he was giving me to depraved aristocrats. But he didn't want to, I was treated, most of the time I was treated like I was absolute piece of dirt, like I had no value at all.
Did he himself sexually abuse you or no, Paul?
He beat me up.
But not sexually abused?
I did not get sexually abused by him. He was extremely sadistic. So he did not sexually abuse me. He abused other children, though.
No tak, jesteśmy po pierwszym tutaj fragmencie. Wydaje się, że już jest na tyle ciekawie, że chyba już nie możecie doczekać drugiego kawałka. Można by powiedzieć, że to, co tutaj widzieliśmy i słyszeliśmy, potwierdza to, co tutaj mówiłem na audycjach u pana z poddasza Kate O'Brien. No cóż, słuchajcie, nie traćmy czasu, bo po co dużo gadania niepotrzebnego. Teraz przejdźmy do tego kolejnego fragmentu. Teraz będzie też około chyba 10-minutowy kawałek. 10-minutowy kawałek i będzie to tak, żeby go zachęcić, tutaj cytat z tego kawałka. Dlaczego Rockefeller miałby to zrobić, skoro miał miliardy w czym czasie? Odpowiedź? David Rockefeller był pedałem. Oglądamy drugą część.
Give my will. And a year later, I did not give my will anymore. And that's why I'm here.
Why would Rockefeller do that if he's got billions at the time? That's a very powerful family.
He was a pedophile, first of all, and these families
Rothschild and David, or more David?
The Rothschild, I don't think, was a pedophile.
But David,
he was more powerful, but he was not a pedophile. David Rockefeller was a pedophile. There's a lot of survivors. I work with survivors. There are a lot of survivors out there of David Rockefeller, but I saw him in a certain light. And I've met one other person. Now that we named David Rockefeller, I can tell you that the place where I was taken in Germany, in Heidelberg, the doctor that was in charge there, Hans Harmsen, I have met another survivor that was also a special project of David Rockefeller. And Hans Harmsen, who was the doctor in charge there, she was there too as a special project of him, and she also came across Hans Harmsen.
Harmsen?
Hans Harmsen.
Harmsen.
S-E-N, yes. There you go. There you go.
And who was he?
He was, I think that he was in charge of the special project of David Rockefeller for the mind control training. And I know one other survivor who went through similar experiences as myself later on.
Did you ever meet him?
Meet him? Oh, yeah.
What was he like?
Or horrendous.
Unpack it.
Okay. The way that you're trained in mind control training, it's based on torture. What I was used to doing as a child sex slave was to please men in some way or other, to get on their wavelength so that they wouldn't harm me, so that I could survive. With him, I never got anywhere. I never got through it at all. Most of these pedophiles you could get through in some way. There's some way in which, I could sense intuitively what I needed to do to please them. So with him, there was nothing that I could do to get through to him. It was just completely mean and vicious. And one thing that he would do is I was forced to watch certain things to learn about men's behavior, whether it was, it was their weakness or their sexual preferences or their sexual
desires,
perversions, their sexual perversions. So we're not talking about regular sexual, we're talking about sexual perversions, to recognize those. And so I was forced to watch the films. And first I would see the man in the behavior, just his face, and then seeing him in the behavior, different things. And then I would need to guess based on a face what this person would do. And if I got it wrong, one thing that he did is he would just strangle me until I fainted. And in the fainting...
He would?
Yeah, he would, yeah. And in the fainting, he liked to strangle. And in the fainting, I would realize after a while that in these near-death experiences that my intuition was sharpening. And so it was punishment for not giving the right answer, but it was also part of the training to be able to get more intuitive and sense things without having to use your reason. And one thing he did was he would strangle me, but first he would say, "Was bedeutet das?" What does this mean? And he would point at his own face, and then he would strangle me. And so his face to me means being strangled, or it did. That's how the programmation worked. So when I actually came across his photo, I felt like I was dying. And it took a long time. And I do a lot of yoga and meditation, and I had to really just go into the breathing and really, really just work through that programmation that seeing his face means you're going to die from strangulation. You're going to asphyxiate.
He wanted you to know that.
That is how programmation works in the network. That you know it, and your body has a reaction. And also, it is a way to get you from A to whatever they need you to go. So if this prompt means that, and that was in Heidelberg, he wasn't there all the time. Most of the time, there were 3 handlers that were doing this.
So if you go back to that, Rob, that says right there, he was a bureaucrat in the Nazi Germany. He was responsible for proven eugenic sterilization performed on the disabled. He supported forced sterilization of the mentally handicapped and helped to carry them out to Protestant intermission institutions for which he was responsible.
David Rockefeller also was a eugenicist.
So when you're with David Rockefeller, are you in their estate? Are you in their house? Are you around their family? And if you are, who
Not
is...
around their family, no. But I was around, I was in 3 of his estates, as I said, and I was around his staff.
Did their staff know what was going on with you or no?
I was in bed with him. And they acted like nothing was happening.
You were in bed with them.
And the staff knew and was there, and they were just acting like that was all normal. I went shopping on Madison Avenue with him. He bought me some dresses and some clothes. And everybody, you can imagine, everybody's so happy to see him, so happy to serve him.
You don't think they're going to think it's weird that a young girl is with a very powerful billionaire?
I don't think today people would think that was weird because there's such a great desire to please those people. But this is 1972. Nobody thought anything. I could have been taken anywhere out in the open. A lot of it was out in the open, and nobody would have thought a single thing. These people were just so happy to serve him. He told his staff that I was his niece from Paris. Who cares?
While they're seeing you in bed with them.
Well, he didn't say it then, but they did see, but they acted like nothing was happening. I don't know if they were also controlled or if they were the right kind of personality. Or, I don't know. But I saw a woman and a butler, a woman and a man, only those two, and that was in the house in New York.
How did they treat you?
Very nice.
They were good to you.
Very.
How was he to you?
Well, most of the time he was he had this excitement. So a pedophile gets excited around children. And so there's a way in which they can start to feel alive when they're with children, because it's their own little child that maybe is dead inside of them that's sort of starting to come to life because they relate to children in that way. They see they're trying to revive their own deadness, which dead from abuse or whatever it is. You know, they're trying to revive something. So they're seeing children at a certain age, usually the age that they were abused. And he was excited. And he was excited not only of being around me, and of course a child is also not somebody who's going to point out your flaws, yeah, right? A real partner will point to your flaws. And he had a slave who was already a child slave, who was, thinking the world of him, and that made him feel really good. So he was excited. And he was also excited at the idea of what he was making me into, because this persona that he was creating, that I was supposed to be a French singer, actress, and he was excited to be the secret man owner behind that persona. And I was sold during that year already, when I was still supposedly in training to become that persona. I was already probably sold. I mean, I was given to a German chancellor at the time. And that was Kurt Kiesinger, who I was driven to Germany. So the Belgians the Belgian handlers would drive me to Germany, and then I would spend time with Kurt Kiesinger, who would take me to like little hotels. And again, no questions asked. Yeah, him. Yeah.
Before he became chancellor, he served as a minister president of 1958-66, president of Federal Council 1960. He was a chairman of Christian Democratic Union from 67 to 71.
Tak, no kolejny fragment za nami. Wydaje się, że znowuż jak myślicie, czy to fikcja, czy żyjemy właśnie w takim świecie? Czy to fikcja, nieprawda? Ktoś próbuje sobie tutaj zaskarbić, nie wiem, widownię i dlatego takie materiały są tutaj publikowane? Jak to jest, powiedzcie mi? Czy warto poświęcić się i troszeczkę zaangażować w to, co robimy, aby może w przyszłości zatrzymać takie historie? Kolejny cytat z kolejnej części. Mówimy o międzynarodowej sieci ludzi, kombinacji psychopatów i pedofili, którzy są satanistami i oni sprzedają swoje dusze. Kiedy zwrócił na mnie uwagę Rockefeller, zamierzał wykorzystać mnie do swoich celów. Wtedy byłabym częścią tego, co nazywam globalną siecią, w której byłabym całkowicie kontrolowana jako gwiazda. To właśnie tam pojawia się kontrola umysłu. Teraz rozumiecie, jakie osoby kreowane są na gwiazdy kina i gwiazdy muzyki. Kolejna część przed nami.
Different.
Threats and violence, using physical harm or threats
That,
against
yeah.
the victim or their loved ones.
For sure.
4, debt bondage, creating a sense of indebtedness that the victim feels obligated to repay. Psychological manipulation, employing tactics like gaslighting to control the victim's perception of reality.
Yes, but you see, when you're talking about the network, which I again, you know, you have David Rockefeller, you have the Rothschilds, you have the Belgians who are, you know, connecting to that network. We're talking about a global network of people, of a combination of psychopaths and pedophile and, you know, far gone pedophiles that are Satanists. And they sell their soul to Satan, and they want control. They have the resources. A lot of the children that are born into these families are abused from the beginning and are mind controlled as well. They are also tortured because what they do, other than the sort of like normal kind of trafficking, is that you get in, and either you are what I was in the beginning, like your life means nothing and you could be killed anytime. That was the first 3 years. But then once he took notice of me, and which was in a very strange circumstance.
He is who?
He is David Rockefeller.
Mm-hmm.
Once he took notice of me and he was going to then use me for his purposes, then I would have been part of the what I call the global network, where I would have been completely controlled as a star. That's where the mind control comes in. And then, you know, using my natural talents and abilities and blood to create a person that is completely in their control, while they have been created the same way, you know. And all these people are crazy. That is, see, this is everything goes into the PR of presenting an image that is really acceptable. And then everything goes into the PR of, you know, it's not as if David Rockefeller didn't have access to the press. So what these people who are part of this murderous network, they use their resources to control their image. And that is, of course, that someone like me should never have too much reach. And what we don't understand is that it is one network. And of course, if they're friends, they're connected a lot through blackmail. Because the Satanists, there's what I call sincere Satanists, who really sell their soul to Satan, and they have rituals, and there are sacrifices being made. And then there are those that just want to belong to the club of power. And, you know, and then it depends in the network in Belgium. Well, it depends if someone gets sucked in. You know, you have your integrity and you have your ideals, and you start out, and then what happens? You know, if you get into that club, you will be asked to make choices, and either it's power and you stay with the club, or it's your integrity means that you cannot do this anymore. You cannot lie. In the beginning, it's to just like be quiet about what you see, having to do with sexual abuse usually. And then as it goes on, it becomes, you get involved, you're participating. And of course, it's not everybody that is going to be manipulable as a pedophile, because not everybody is going to rape a child. But those who don't, they know, and they keep quiet about it. So that's how it works. And
how long were you with David Rockefeller? 1 month? Or did you see him again after that?
I did see him again after that. I saw him again after the training, and I saw him again, especially a year later in April. I saw him.
73 or 70, 72?
73 now.
Okay.
April of 73. I saw him in Italy. And that's where I saw the most people that I recognized later. There were actually a lot of singers there. There were a lot of people that were in the entertainment industry, and this was my coming out. I was singing. I performed several songs. So there was some Jacques Brel songs because he's Belgian,
Jacques
like
Brel
myself.
song, really, like Ne me quitte
Ne me
pas,
quitte
or-
pas.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I sang.
yeah.
Yeah, Ne me quitte pas. And then
Un saut oublié tout. It's a beautiful, amazing song.
It's a beautiful
he's one of
song.
my favorite. And by the way, that song was sang by, I think Julio Iglesias, I think Sting. They converted it in English. The meaning of the song is actually very interesting. The first time he sang that song on TV, he died at a very young age.
he died rather young,
yeah.
but he was alive then, and it was a popular song.
Was
and
he there at the event or no?
No, no.
Okay.
I never saw Jacques Brel, but I was singing the song, and what I had been trained by a famous French composer, singer, and he had showed me the choreography. Now, I didn't fully understand what was happening, but this choreography, I was sexualizing every line of that song. So you have the line, for example, I remember Le vieux volcan. There's a line about the old volcano that nevertheless still spouts fire. And for that, I remember I had to go sit on an old man's lap and I had to look down on his genitals because that's the old volcano that spouts fire, that still spouts fire.
In front of everybody?
That was the audience. Yeah. And this is an audience of people that were in the sphere of Rockefeller, obviously, but this is like a satanic gathering. I mean, these were people that were in this club, and for whatever reason they wanted to be there, whether it was for fame or whatever,
When you're doing that, are they laughing or are they just like, oh, it's this great performance? What's
laughing.
the reaction?
No, laughing.
They're
Everybody laughs
laughing.
at the sex jokes of the 9-year-old. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're 9 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's there? Some of the names that you're saying. Who's there at this
Well,
party?
okay, I know you really want to hear names, and I really don't like to focus so much on the names, but Eddie Arnold was an American perpetrator that was there. And Eddie Arnold was, yeah. So Eddie Arnold was somebody who really, really, really wanted to belong to the club. And I don't know how people got in there. Some of them are coming in through masonry. Some of them are coming in other ways because they get famous and then they get lured in. But he just really wanted to belong.
Now, when you say belong to the club, meaning just to be there.
Power.
But was he,
It's power.
but not abusing kids? You're not.
No, he abused me. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he abused me. That week, so there was an entire week, and I was basically given to a lot of men there. Meanwhile,
this guy would
horrible
sing
things were
Christmas
happening.
Songs.
Yeah. Meanwhile, lots of horrible things were happening. There were rituals happening. It was like the only thing I can compare it to is maybe like I think of a Dionysian orgy.
No i kolejna część, chyba też mocna. Tutaj, jak widzimy, znowuż można powiedzieć, że cały ten światek artystów, wokalistów, wykonawców, artystów. Kto wie, czy może nie cały, może przesadzam, że cały, ale spora część na pewno zrobi kariery, czy po zrobieniu kariery zachowują się w taki sposób. No co ja mogę powiedzieć? Mogę powiedzieć, że to jest wyjątkowo, słuchajcie, bulwersujące. Przed następną częścią pokażę też, a czy właściwie przedstawię parę tutaj cytatów, żebyście się mogli do tego już tak bardziej mentalnie przygotować. Podałaś mi wcześniej kilka nazwisk. Nie chcę tego mówić, dopóki nie poczujesz się komfortowo. Jednym z nazwisk było, wiesz, inny znany polityk z Zachodu. Tak. Jak go poznałaś? On również był tam tego tygodnia? Tak. To Pierre Trudeau. Kolejny tutaj fragment.
I believe this happens all the time. And I believe it was way more back in the days till today, because back in the days, and by the way, today it's still happening today. You see movies like Sound of Freedom, you see movies like Liam Neeson, Taken 2, Taken 3. Why do movies do so well? And, Belgium is known for a lot of things. Europe, some of these countries are known for a lot of things. But to me, it's more...
It's a worldwide, it's a global...
Right. It's a $150 billion a year industry. I mean,
no. This is a global elite network with specific people in it, and they're not all friends. So there can be infighting happening as well. But it is, and when I think of politics, it's like manipulated division. There's so much manipulation, and it's all manipulated to keep people fighting each other, so that we'll not look at the imposed division that is really between the top and the bottom. And when you start looking at the top, this is happening now.
Who is the top?
Well, isn't Rockefeller the top? Isn't Rothschild the top? Aren't those people the ones at the top? No. So I'm taking all the risks speaking about it. I don't want to say anything. I actually don't even like to say the names, because the truth is, it's not out of loyalty. It's rather that what is right to say when. Yes, saying names eventually is important because I was there. It's my story. I should be able to say who it was.
What do you think about Jane Fonda and Julie Andrews? What do you think about them?
What do I think of people like that as potentially just like what I was going to be, you see.
Got it. Potentially what I was going to be.
Yes, I was supposed to be a celebrity in France. So I was going to be singing, and I was trained as the sexy, the sexual animal. So that's what was being sold. So that's how these powerful men would then fall for me. And then I could maybe marry a president, that's possible. Whatever it was, but it was really Rockefeller who was behind it.
Okay. So when you're spending time with Rockefeller, you said you didn't know it was him until he died in 2017.
Yeah.
Tak, ten fragment był krótszy. Teraz przejdziemy do kolejnego fragmentu. Po pierwsze, w tygodniu, o którym mówiłam, to było we Włoszech, w pobliżu jeziora Como. Tam działy się te wszystkie okropne rzeczy. Tu taki dłuższy fragment, ponad 9 minut.
David Rockefeller saw, even Paul van den Boeynants saw things in me that my mother never did. He recognized things that were actually intricately mine. So for my emotional growth, I needed.
You ever seen the movie Red Sparrow?
No, I don't need to see those movies because there's a lot of movies and they take like little aspects of what happens in the network. Yeah.
Oh, I fully believe the network exists. I am not from the school of thought that this doesn't exist. This is a real thing. I have a lot of friends in the space who are former CIA guys, Delta guys, military guys that, it's as real as it gets. It is happening. The only reason I asked this question for me is one of the recent stories that was, all over the news in America is over Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
When you hear the types of stories where billionaires give him $151 million of consulting fee I
Right.
was like, well, who the hell gives who 151 million? Oh, he will help me on my taxes. That much? Maybe $1 million? Maybe $500,000? I don't know anybody that gets paid $158 million of consulting fee. Leon Black gives to Jeffrey Epstein. It's kind of weird, right? When people ask,
Well,
that's the amount of money I
that's
give.
very, I take that for granted. What people don't know is that I work with survivors again, and several survivors, younger survivors that I know were trained by him. And so
Who? Jeffrey?
Jeffrey
Okay.
Epstein,
Yep.
he was a
I
programmer.
thought you were talking David. That's why I'm
Excuse
asking.
me. Yeah. No, Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh-huh.
And they were trained by him, some from when they were babies. So just the story that's out there now is that, the teens and everything. And then we talk about, the abuse of teens, but really he was training children of all ages.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him or Jelaine?
No.
Never met him, even in New
No,
York?
I was out in 1974. I was out.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did you do after you got out? What jobs did you do? When you came to New York, what were you doing in the 80s, 85?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about how I got out, because normally you don't get out.
Okay. Tell us. How did you get out?
Look, first, the week that I was telling you in Italy, it was in Italy nearby Lake Como, so where I was sleeping with all these men and where these horrific things were happening.
Men and women, I think you said to me.
There were
right?
men and women,
Right.
absolutely, but I was sleeping with the men. I was not trained to be with women. I was only trained as a sex slave for men.
Mm-hmm.
And these horrible things were happening all week. And the end of the week, and this is April 30, is an important day for the Satanists. I'm not exactly sure why, but by the end of the week, I was going to have my I had already had the singing, I'd already had the performance for everybody there. And then I was going to have the ritual that was how I was going to be part of them. Another I will, perhaps, you have to say I will. So you have to give your will to the network, to Satan. And so this was going to be my big entry. And I knew better. I didn't want to do. I knew I didn't want to. I didn't want to pay that price. I didn't want to pay the price that it would take to be part of it. And so I did everything that I needed to do, because I had been trained in a way that I knew not to say no. But after that, the next time I saw David Rockefeller, I rebelled. And then I was immediately tortured. Was thrown in a cage in a dungeon and tortured for several days.
By him?
But no, he never touched. He was always kept. He watched, and he was there for some of it. He was verbally telling me that I was absolutely worthless. But Hans Harmsen came too. And
Excuse me.
no. And basically, I was retrained for several days to make sure, that I would feel the lowest of the low, and that I was absolutely worthless. And anyway,
He's telling you this.
he told me that for sure, but also I was also tortured. And so he wasn't always there. He was there a few times, but he wasn't. And at the end of that couple of days, I was basically thrown back into the Belgian network, where I was used another year. And then my book actually speaks about the year after I've already been rejected from what I call the inner circle afterwards. And I ended up, there's this gangster that took an interest in me, and a year later, that became an extremely violent, vicious relationship I'm 10, he's 20, and a year later he rescued me. And I had a near-death experience, so you could say that I didn't survive. I had an extremely big near-death experience. I wasn't supposed to survive, but I had to come back, and it was a very beautiful experience. Also, like my book is called Quest for Love. I was in these pedophilic relationships and everything, looking for love in the midst of hell. But what happened in that near-death experience was, and it was, I was always, spirit was often present with me, and there were, like when I talk about these things, yes, I was tortured for days, and this is true. So when you look at that from the outside, it is just gruesome and there's nothing else there. But spiritually, I felt often that there was help. Sometimes no, sometimes yes, but there was help. There was support. There was sometimes there was an insight that would come. Often I felt this benign presence. And when I had the near-death experience, it was a very glorious experience. And I felt finally this incredible love.
Do you believe in God?
Of course. I mean, that's everything. There is nothing with that.
Who's God to you? Are you a Christian?
It's not a
Are you a how would you define that?
The one, my teacher who showed up in the near-death experience was Paramahansa Yogananda. Now, Paramahansa Yogananda started a autobiography of a yogi. Yeah. If you want to show. There you go. That orange book. There you go. That's Paramahansa Yogananda. So Paramahansa Yogananda wrote, one of the gurus of the path is Christ. And so it is not separate from Christianity. The teachings are the original Christianity combined with the original yoga, which has nothing to do with the physical yoga, but the meditation. So you have, the prayer, which is like speaking to God, and then the meditation, which I could call listening to God. And there's these specific meditation techniques that bring your energy back into your spine and brain, that are meant to help you what happened, in the near-death experience is you transcend the physical, you leave the body, but because you are not the body, you are consciousness, pure consciousness. And then in that experience, I experienced the expansion of the heart, where I just felt that divine love. Mm. And then had these insights also then to help me know what to strive for when I was healing. And that is to go back, to return to the love of Christ. And that is why my message has so much to do with ending the division between people, between us, not judging other people, respecting everybody.
Tak, no i mamy teraz już przedostatnią część tego tutaj wywiadu, tej rozmowy. Ostatnie dwie części to tutaj, żeby was zachęcić też do tego, aby do końca dotrwać. Nie jest łatwo uporządkować to, co wydaje się być poglądami politycznymi. Uważam, że polityka w całości jest po to, aby powodować podziały w tym momencie i zauważam, jak podział zaostrzył się w ostatnich latach. Chyba nikt już nie ma wątpliwości co do tego, że wszystko jest z góry oczywiście zaplanowane. Gwiazdy kina i muzyki są wybierane i kreowane przez elity i używane do takiego manipulacji właściwie ludzką opinią, a politycy jak Trudeau, Macron to zwykli socjopaci, którzy tresowani byli od dzieci, aby w przyszłości właśnie wykonywać polecenia elit. No cóż, przedostatnia część.
It's more division because most people are not on that end of the spectrum or on that end of the spectrum as it's being presented to us. Most people are somewhere in the middle. And yes, I think there's a lot of confusion because of that mind control. And when I say co-opted is, for example, abortion was co-opted for in the feminist movement. The issue of abortion was co-opted. Now, Hans Harmsen, that German doctor, he was the head of Pro Familia. So he was the head of the Planned Parenthood of Germany. He was friends with Margaret Sanger. And so there's something about abortion where that has become the thing, the biggest issue. It is not. Every woman would know that being a mother is, is why we are, being a woman is being a mother, and there's biological facets of that make you more empathic in general and more able to open your heart because we're mothers. And that is, that has to do with the biological, fact. So to take abortion, where, first there's sexualization of everything that was imposed. I was going to be part of that agenda of sexualizing everything to go towards pedophilia eventually, because I was going to be a girl singing sexy songs, and then I was going to be a woman singing like a little girl. And so that is on purpose. So I was trained that way. And of course, there's a thought behind it that people will think it's okay that a little girl sings like, makes sexual jokes, and that an adult woman sings like a little girl. And everything that is being sexualized, the way that porn has become so incredibly accessible that most children today discover sex through porn. None of that is, I believe, on purpose. That would be very much fit into that agenda that I was going to be a part of when I was a child, by these people who really want to control everything. And so when you take abortion, that is a natural side effect of sexualizing everybody. So when you sexualize everybody, and you make sex like having a drink, basically, that was the idea. Instead of a marital commitment, it became this like having a drink, and and this is what it is today. It's considered that.
Who did that though?
Well, that's what I think is the people that were in this network, that there was an agenda behind where we're going that has to do with this. Like the abortion would be a natural result of if sexualizing everything, and that then the girl has to pay the most, and that abortion then would become a good option, which it never is. So you never hear about how hard it is for the woman. You never hear about how, for example, there is no consent form. Like, there's no consent form signed. You don't know what happens to the fetus. When you go in to have an abortion.
Or pro-life?
I am neither. I refuse to take sides in all of this because I have had an abortion. I was a sex slave. I was promiscuous. I got pregnant. It would have ruined my life. And it would not have been an option to live out the pregnancy and to give up the baby for adoption. It was not on the table. So it is such a difficult choice because there's life inside of you.
Are you glad you're alive?
But abortion is such a complex...
Are you glad you're alive?
A lot of survivors of what I've been through would not really say yes to that.
I agree.
And today, by the grace of God, I am here, and I am glad to be alive. I feel that right now, I have freedom that I never would have hoped to have, and I feel purpose to my life.
This is a very,
And that's what I mean by co-opted. These issues arise. It's the it's the same people that create the problem and that create the solution. That's what I mean with co-opting. And that is what I mean with the division that has to be so extreme. What we see, it's not as if social media is not controlled. So there too, we get constantly brainwashed. And that's what I say we have to be very mindful of and careful that we don't start judging people.
Yeah, but you listen, I understand you're saying not judging people. That's what we have justice. That's what we have law and order.
What kind of justice do you
That's
mean?
what we have-
Because
that's
they
what
were
we
in the
have
network
laws.
also. The
No,
people
but-
from
Well, that's what we have
it. The
laws.
people in the justice system were the head of
They're
the
for sale, and that's why I said they need to be called out when they're alive, not when they're dead. That's why I ask you, who's the lady's name? You're like, I don't want to do it because she's alive. That's
not why. I told you the reason is because nobody would believe me, and I'm not ready, and it's not fair of you to ask me.
But at this point, I'm not interested. I don't even want you to say it. Even if you said, I'll cut it out, just so you know. For you to know, I'm not trying to close you in telling me. Don't do it on my show. Do it on somebody else's show. If you give me the name right now, I'll cut it.
It's a matter of timing. Everything I do is calculated,
but
right?
Hang on a second. Here's what I want to say to you. If you sit there and think about what is going on, there's nothing like unfair, what's the word? Unfair punishment. So you hear these stories of, guys that went to jail for 20 years for selling a dime bag.
I know. I worked in the prisons.
Why did that guy go to jail for a dime bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or people that went to jail that didn't kill anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else blamed them. And, hey, he's going to go in, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are devastating. You ruined someone's life, their youth. You stole their 20s and their 30s.
That's right.
And they're going to get out in their mid-40s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need law and order so the big guy cannot bully the little guy. You need that. Unfortunately, because we have certain lobbyists and because we have certain politicians that are for sale, predominantly on the left, that are for sale.
Well, no, don't say that.
No,
My
it's the
perpetrators
truth.
were
It
from
is.
both sides.
Yeah, no, but
Absolutely. No. You cannot say
I
predominantly.
said
You don't know.
politicians. I said politicians. It's cheaper to buy the people on the left than the ones on the right.
You don't know
Presidents who become
that.
presidents.
You don't know that either.
Presidents who become presidents, who funded their own campaign, are tougher to buy than those who were funded 100% by donors, like the Clintons, like the Obamas, like the Carters, like others.
I'm saying that you don't know
what-
that.
No,
You don't know
it's
that.
very simple because it's just called math.
I have a different
It's
perspective,
well,
and my
I-
perspective
there's a
comes
reason
from
why you have a different
having
perspective.
been part of.
Well, you can say that,
Having
but that
been in
doesn't.
it as a
I
child.
understand that, but that doesn't make your perspective 100% accurate. On when
I'm
it
saying
comes
you
down
don't
to-
know that.
Also, you don't know that because you're also a little bit too in it. Because as a feminist, you said you're a feminist. It's easy.
And what does that mean to you? the
Well, what does
word
it mean to you?
feminist?
Tell me what it means to you.
Well, I have been through a lot of things that I know that would have never happened to me if I was not a woman, not a girl or a woman. So
that means a man will never be able to understand what you're saying. And another woman.
no. Oh,
Let's
no,
hear it.
not at
Go for
all.
it.
That just means that I am absolutely for full equality. That doesn't even mean necessarily legally. It just means that I, as a woman, need to be able to speak freely and with everything that means as a woman.
Mm.
That's what it means to me. It doesn't necessarily
Well, the
mean
point
what
I
you
was-
were making of it.
Right. And I don't know what that meant, what you just said, but like for me,
Well, because as maybe you don't understand then as a man, but as a woman, there are certain things that I've had to go through. Like, for example, harassment. It was extremely common when I was a young adult
sure.
to be harassed. I was harassed everywhere. When I was living in Paris, when I was living in New York, it was just happening all the time.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe
For
you.
example, that's one of those things.
No,
and
but
it's
we're
very,
talking two different things. I believe that. I believe the sexualization of women. I fully believe that.
Okay.
I'm not sitting there saying that, but at the same time, the same people that wanted women rights are the same people that are okay with men choosing to compete in women's sports. That's very weird.
Well, of course, and that's not
defended
what
by
I'm talking about at
feminists,
all.
yeah.
That has nothing to do with
But
feminism to
unfortunately,
me.
that's what a lot of liberals defend nowadays, and that's why they lost the election as catastrophically as they did in America, losing 7
Absolutely.
battlegrounds. It's embarrassing.
But
I want to do this.
Do you have then also that? Is that everybody, or is that
No, I don't agree that's everybody.
Right.
No, I don't agree that's everybody. By the way, I think John F. Kennedy, what he wanted to do with America, I think there was a lot of what he wanted to do was noble. And I trusted their family more because they self-funded them running for office. You couldn't necessarily buy them. Anybody on the left or the right that runs for office.
All my icons have been, knocked off their pedestal just from speaking to people that have been through this.
Those are two different things. I totally get it. What's the saying, Rob, when they say, when you meet your hero, what's the word? Don't meet your hero because you will be quite often disappointed, or some phrase like that, because you're going to see they don't walk on water as much as you thought they did. But no.
No powiem wam, że ten fragment tutaj tej rozmowy mi się wyjątkowo nie podobał. Prowadzący, bo widać, że prowadzący raczej dosyć wyraźnie sympatyzuje z prawą stroną i nie da sobie powiedzieć, że tutaj nie ma żadnej różnicy, gdzie główna bohaterka i powiedzmy tutaj ta pani, która przeżyła cały ten koszmar, próbuje mu uzmysłowić, że nie ma znaczenia, czy to jest lewa, czy prawa strona, że wszyscy są również dokładnie tak samo w to umoczeni, ale widać było, że tutaj prowadzącemu jakoś to się wyjątkowo nie podobało, to stanowisko, no chociaż to nie on przecież przeżywał tę historię, to nie on przecież tutaj tak naprawdę doświadczał tych wszystkich tragedii i tego całego koszmaru, a jednak cały czas tak jakby nie brał pod uwagę, że obydwie strony tej tak zwanej polityce są równocześnie w ten sam sposób umoczone w całe te procedery. I tutaj ktoś, tak jak ta pani między innymi powiedziała, że trzeba coś zrobić, a tym pierwszym krokiem do tego, aby zbliżyć się ku normalności, jest przede wszystkim zmiana systemu i tego się trzymajmy. Jakkolwiek jeszcze tego wielu nie rozumie, to jest to właściwa droga do tego, aby to można było załatwić. I teraz mamy już końcówkę. Czekajcie, czy ja już to powiedziałem? Tutaj chyba, nie wiem, tak tutaj przeleciałem chyba nie ten temat. Ta część, tak, tutaj miałem pewne takie streszczenie, co chciałem wam powiedzieć, ale tutaj było między innymi o ojcu Billa Gatesa. Dobra, teraz przejdziemy do ostatniego fragmentu, już ostatniego tutaj elementu tego, co przynajmniej udało mi się zdobyć. Pamiętajcie, że mam jeszcze zupełnie inną postać, jeszcze inną ofiarę, która, jak będziecie oczywiście chcieli, to piszcie w komentarzach, pojawi się również tutaj jako takie dopełnienie do programów u pana z poddasza. Ostatnia część tej rozmowy z Annek Lucas przed wami.
This is not an easy topic. This is very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. This is why I said at the beginning, it takes courage to talk about it. I give you that respect. Mm-hmm. So I know it's not easy. Mm-hmm. I know it's not easy to go through something like this.
And it's not easy to speak about it. And it is also not easy to sort through what seem to be political views. You see, I believe that politics on the whole are there to cause division at this point. So, and I notice how the division has sharpened in the last years. And so that is why...
Who's done that, though? Who's done that? Think about who's done that.
Well,
If you're pretty smart, okay, you've been around, who do you think's done that? Who has the ultimate power?
well, I would say that the people that I was used by, they wanted to control not just their slaves, but they wanted to control
Who?
everybody.
But how were they able to silence or get their message out there? What tool did they use in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s?
In the 70s, pedophilia was, for example, sold quite a bit. There was a lot that was very, like the Blue Lagoon, for example. That's a very inappropriate film, and there's a lot out there. In France, there was a lot. David Hamilton, he did Bilitis. Now, the girls that were filmed by him are coming out saying that he raped them. You see, the 70s, they were really pushing pedophilia, and it feels like at the moment there's a new push again towards pedophilia.
Yeah, but where I was going with this is they did it by controlling the media.
Yeah.
So who
the
controls
media,
the media?
but there's also social media.
Well, social media is
Because the tech
controlled.
companies are also controlled, aren't
Sure,
they?
I know they are, but who are they controlled by? Who? The only guy that owns it that's conservative possibly is a guy named Elon who used to be a Democrat. He left when they realized they're insane. They've lost their mind.
That's one person.
But everybody else is on the other side. So, I remember, when you're explaining all this stuff, showing these movies, there was a weird song back in the days by this guy named Benny Mardones, which I don't know if you remember this song. She's just 16 years old.
Gosh.
Remember that? I mean, this guy's
There's a ton
singing
of
a
songs
song
that you're
about. It's like,
You can find
Yeah.
compilations of songs now where they're all singing about pedophilia.
I read the
Not
lyrics.
people that
Here's
look
the
like him.
lyrics. It says, she's just 16 years old. Leave her alone, they said, separated by fools who don't know what love is yet. But I want you to know, if I could fly, I'd pick you up, I'd take you into the night and show you a love like you've never seen. This is a grown man talking about a 16-year-old. And he was asked in an interview.
Otis Redding.
Sitting on the dock of the, which song?
No, the song, she's weary. And young girls, they do get weary wearing that same old shabby dress. And then the lyrics go, young girl, you won't regret it. He says, you won't regret it.
Yeah. Well, look, we're living
Try
in
a
a weird
little
world.
tenderness. Yeah. You know she's waiting, just anticipating.
At least this guy didn't give the age. This other guy's given the age. She's
Young girls. It's
Yeah.
young girls.
He's
And
got the audacity
Beatles,
to say
she's
16.
just 17. Do you know what I mean? As the Beatles.
In some countries, it was 16 back in the days. Like it was even in America right now. I think the legal age in
Yeah,
America.
but we're
some
still
places,
talking about grown men singing about a 17-year-old.
No,
It's
I
always
know.
the same story.
No,
Yeah?
I'm with you. I understand what you're saying, but as weird as it sounds, look at this. Even in U.S., some states, the age of consent is 17 in New York State, 15 in Arkansas. The national average in U.S. is 16. So some of this stuff is kind of maybe we need to update some of these laws that we have in place. But anyways, Annika,
Tak, no niestety mam tylko tyle tych fragmentów, więcej ich nie mam. To jest wszystko na ten temat, ale wystarczająco chyba tutaj było pokazana ta historia. Oczywiście ta końcówka w wykonaniu prowadzącego kompletnie mi się nie podobała i widać, że to jest też raczej człowiek, tak jak jeszcze raz tutaj mówiłem we wcześniejszym wejściu moim, wyjątkowo ukierunkowany na to, że prawica jest taka fantastyczna i tam, wiecie, jest mniej przypadków niż po tej drugiej stronie. Wydaje mi się, że w ogóle nie można tego dzielić na prawicę i lewicę. Po prostu są ludzie, którzy chcą robić kariery i te kariery po prostu ktoś umożliwia im robić pod jednym warunkiem, że się będą właśnie zachowywać tak, a nie inaczej, że będą wchodzić w te kręgi takiego mrocznego świata. No i potem mamy to, co mamy. Tak więc, słuchajcie, to jest też dowód na to, że to, co jest przekazywane na audycjach u pana z poddasza, jest jak najbardziej prawdziwe i ten świat po prostu jest dokładnie taki, jak tam jest opisywany, ale jednocześnie na innych programach, a również na u pana z poddasza pokazujemy, jak to naprawić. Tyle na dzisiaj a propos tego takiego dodatku do programów do pana z poddasza, czy u pana z poddasza. Przemyślcie sobie to, piszcie w komentarzach, jak będziecie chcieli ten drugi materiał. Poczekajcie, ja wam powiem, jak się nazywa ta druga osoba, bo troszeczkę niekoniecznie pamiętam, ale zaraz wam powiem. Och, kurczę, nie mam tej drugiej tutaj, ale mam może ją w innym miejscu. No widzicie? I mi się to zgubiło. Miałem mieć i nie mam. Wydawało mi się, że to ściągnąłem. Och, no niefajna rzecz. Dobra, ale postaramy się to znaleźć. Ja mam gdzieś to chyba zapisane. Zobaczymy, może mi się uda to odnaleźć. Ale jeszcze jest podobna taka ofiara, zupełnie wam chyba nieznana. Mi nie była znana w każdym razie, jak do niej dotarłem. Jak dotrę, to też tutaj wyemitujemy jako taki, można powiedzieć, dodatek do tych materiałów, które są tutaj omawiane przeze mnie podczas tych programów. Tyle na dzisiaj. Udostępnijcie ten program, gdzie tylko się da. Dajcie pod programem łapkę i koniecznie nie zapominajcie o tym, że mamy dzisiaj 30, słuchajcie, listopada, Andrzejki w ogóle chyba nie, to tak jakoś jest. Pamiętajcie, że mamy czas opłat, dlatego wrzućcie coś do koszyczka, abyśmy tutaj mogli już na spokojnie w poniedziałek to, co mamy do opłacenia, poopłacać siedzieć i w spokoju prowadzić kolejne programy. Jeszcze raz dziękuję za uwagę, trzymajcie się ciepło, przemyślcie to, co na tym programie było i do zobaczenia już jutro na kolejnych audycjach. Dobranoc.
U Pana z poddasza tam prawda wciąż grzmi o tajnym kluczu, co w mroku gdzieś lśni. Reptaliański szlak przez królestwa trwa, rządzą w cieniu tam, gdzie wzrok nie sięga. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozszytowie, archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Hybrydy krwi wśród ludu są też, korony na głowach skrywają ich grzech. Rodowe tajemnice w ciemnych salach drżą, władcy bez twarzy, co nami rządzić chcą. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozszytowie, archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Gdy księżyc się budzi, a noc wchodzi w dzień, Pan z poddasza opowieść wszędzie jak cień. O królewskich rodach, istotach, co trwają w tych sekretach i świat cały do kłamstwa namawiają. W nowym porządku, gdzie niebo i ziemia spotyka się z tajemnicą, co sen nam odbiera. Rozszytowie, archonci i władcy tej gry, przyglądając się światu, ścielą nam mgły. U Pana z poddasza mroczna prawda brzmi, opowieść o władzy, co głośno krzyczy: my! Uważaj, słuchaczu, gdy noc w okno zapuka, Pan z poddasza prawdy o świecie z tobą będzie szukał.